You see the billionaire, Victor Sterling, and you see the hospital room. Marble, glass, a view of the city he owns. You think you know this story. Rich man gets richer, but look closer. See Anya, the 23-year-old nursing assistant, moving like a ghost in his opulent shadow. She's the kind of person Victor never even sees. She scrubs floors, wipes down monitors, and quietly, invisibly, keeps his fragile body alive. To him, she's furniture, a nobody. Then, the line is crossed. It's not about medicine. It's about power. He tests her, offering a life-changing amount of cash to commit a simple, moral crime. A test he was certain she would fail. He thought he was buying her silence, her dignity, maybe even her soul. But he made one catastrophic mistake. He didn't just cross her line. He revealed his own. 24 hours later, the man who tried to buy the truth from the quietest person in the room watched his entire billion-dollar empire implode. This is the story of how the invisible nurse saw the one thing the Titan misstand, how her silence became the loudest sound of justice. Keep watching. But before we reveal the deep secret this CEO was hiding, take a second to smash that like button and subscribe to join our community. Your support ensures we can keep sharing these powerful stories of hidden strength and quiet justice. Now, let's get into the details of what he truly lost. The aroma of expensive antiseptic and fresh flowers. An olfactory paradox that only existed in the platinum wing of St. Jude's Hospital, where illness came with privileges. Anya breathed this scent deeply every morning, not because she liked it, but to remind herself that here, even dressed in an immaculate light blue uniform, she was merely an efficient shadow, a cog of minor importance in a machine of medical luxury. She was a nursing assistant, the bedrock, the front line of care that the designer doctors barely touched. Anya was 23, and the fatigue weighed more heavily on her than her age should allow. Her shift didn't start at the time clock, but the moment she had to set aside her own life, the tight finances, the night college, the worry about her grandmother, and put on the mask of professional stoicism. The platinum wing was all glass and polished marble. Everything about it screamed distance. The walls weren't concrete, but large windows overlooking a city skyline that seemed to belong to everyone but her. This wing was a perfect metaphor for high society, transparent enough to be admired, yet armored enough so that no one from the outside could truly reach or interfere. The VIP patient in room 701, the epicenter of Anya's routine, was Victor Sterling, tech billionaire, founder of Kronos Systems, whose name was everywhere, from news feeds to stock exchanges. Victor was bedridden due to post-surgical complications, but his dominance over the environment was palpable. He wasn't sick, he was inconveniently indisposed. His cold blue eyes, even under medication, scanned the room and the people with an intensity that assessed the price and utility of everything. To Victor, people were resources. And, by his look, Anya was worth less than the blood pressure monitor beside his bed. She had been assigned to his personal care, mobility, hygiene, basic comfort tasks he accepted as his inalienable right. "You have a light touch, girl," Victor grumbled one morning, as she adjusted his position in bed, ensuring no sheet caused undue pressure. It wasn't a compliment. It was a factual observation, as if he were commenting on the temperature of his coffee. Anya mumbled a quiet "thank you, Mr. Sterling," without meeting his gaze. She had learned the power of the gaze. Staring down a man like Victor was giving him ammunition. Staying invisible was her armor. The irony of the situation hung in the air like the excessive perfume of his latest visitor. Victor, who controlled the data flow and the time of millions of people with his technology, was now entirely at the mercy of his own body, and crucially, of that quiet young woman who ensured he didn't drown in his own glass of water. He was a chained titan, and Anya was the caretaker holding the key to his dignity. Yet, he spoke through her, never to her. He barked orders to his executive assistants over the phone, discussing multi-million-dollar deals, assuming Anya was incapable of processing anything beyond his vital signs. One afternoon, he was on a critical teleconference. His voice, usually controlled, was tinged with frustration. "No, Mark, we need the Phoenix patch activated before the market closes. If that glitch leaks to the media, well, let's just say reputation is worth more than gold. Just use the silent route on code 733. Accounting will handle the rest." Anya was changing the IV bag, her hands working with mechanical precision, her brain, however, registering every word. Phoenix patch, glitch, silent route. The jargon seemed impenetrable, but the tension in his voice was universal. It was the sound of fear. She remembered the first time Victor's fear manifested in a non-medical way. He had knocked over a glass of cranberry juice, a vibrant, bold red stain on the pristine white sheet. Instead of asking for help, he had yelled at his assistant, blaming her for leaving the glass too close to the edge. Anya quietly cleaned up the mess with unnerving efficiency, replacing the linen in under a minute. The look Victor gave her afterward wasn't gratitude, but revulsion at having witnessed his momentary lapse of control. Quite the spectacle, isn't it, Mr. Sterling? Seeing a god chained, she thought, a phrase she would never dare utter, but which echoed in her mind like a bell. Victor's room was a sanctuary of technology, a state-of-the-art laptop, an encrypted phone, and a medical monitor that, to Anya, told a truer story than any financial report. While monitoring Victor's blood pressure reading, she noticed a strange pattern. Whenever he received a specific email or phone call, the numbers would take a slight, almost imperceptible leap. It wasn't the stress of the illness. It was the stress of a secret too heavy for the heart. Anya thought about her grandmother. She worked double shifts to pay for her treatment and expenses. The difference between Victor's illness and her grandmother's illness was the ocean of money separating them. Victor bought the best. Her grandmother took what the system gave. This subtle, daily injustice was Anya's silent fuel. In one moment, while Victor dozed, she approached the window. The city outside looked like a chessboard, where the pawns, like her, worked tirelessly to sustain the kings. Like Victor, she didn't feel hatred, just calm observation. She was the shadow, but shadows are made of light. And light, sometimes, reveals what is hidden. The call bell rang, shrill, interrupting the tense silence. Victor woke up, annoyed, his eyes fixed on her. Girl, my water. And next time, try to move faster. Time is money, you know. His catchphrase, the mantra of his existence. Anya turned, water in hand. Her lips curved slightly, an invisible millimeter of defiance. She was about to enter the next phase. The phase where the VIP patient would not only cross the line, but try to drag her with him. She knew her invisibility was about to be tested, and that the man before her, chained to his bed and his fortune, was about to make a mistake that could cost him far more than he could imagine. The room door opened, and Victor's executive assistant, Ms. Davies, walked in with a leather briefcase. The forced smile on her face, an irony and a foreshadowing that the negotiation was about to begin. The air in room 701 grew heavier, almost palpable, as if the atmospheric pressure had increased to compensate for the weight of the money about to change hands. Ms. Davies, the assistant, placed the briefcase on Victor's chair rest, a gesture that felt like a silent offering. She had the look of someone who had swallowed a lemon, knowing the negotiation she was about to witness was not about stocks or acquisitions, but about the soul. Anya was finishing organizing the medication tray, heard back to them, but her ears trained to catch the slightest alteration in Victor's tone. Davies, you can give us a minute. Close the door, please. And girl, ... double quotes. Victor paused, deliberately. You can stay. Anya turned slowly. The term girl was his constant humiliation, a way for Victor to infantilize her and erase her adult identity. But she didn't react. The door closed with a final sounding click. That room, previously a haven of medical luxury, suddenly transformed into a chamber for a test of character. Victor was watching Anya, not with his previous coldness, but with a speculative gleam. Sit down, Anya. For the first time. Sit down, he commanded, pointing to the nearby leather armchair. Hesitant, but compliant with the patient's order, she sat on the edge. The soft fabric felt foreign against her rough uniform. Victor wasted no time. I've been watching you. You're efficient, quiet, and honestly, much more competent than half the idiots I've hired at Kronos. The problem, he said, raising his voice slightly, is that you are wasting that competence on soiled sheets and food trays. He coughed, a dry sound, and continued. I know about your grandmother. I know about college. I'm a man of data, Anya. I know you're scraping by to make ends meet. Victor had used his power to investigate her personal life, turning her vulnerability into a weapon. The breach of privacy was the first line crossed, an act of disrespect that hit her harder than any insult. Anya felt her blood run cold. With all due respect, Mr. Sterling, my personal life is none of your business. And I like my job. Victor gave a short, humorless laugh. Like it. Nobody likes cleaning up after someone else. Anya, you do it out of necessity. And I'm about to remove that necessity. He nodded to Ms. Davies, who opened the briefcase. Inside, there were no documents, but stacks of new money. $100 bills piled in bundles. A visual hyperbole of obscene wealth. $20,000. In cash. Right now, Victor stated, his voice low but definitive. Think of it as a bonus. A thank you for being so helpful. A whole year's college tuition. Your grandmother's rent for 3 years. Anya looked at the money. $20,000. It was enough to bring her back into the light, take the weight off her shoulders, and give her grandmother a break. The symbolism of the money was seductive. She felt a moment of dizziness, the temptation to just grab the money and run with it. And what do I have to do to earn this thank you, Mr. Sterling? Her voice was a thin but steady line. Victor smiled, a predatory smile that didn't reach his eyes. He gestured toward a highly confidential document clipped to a support on his bedside table. You see this document? It's an internal audit report from Kronos. Nothing vital, just a bit of number cleaning. I need it to disappear, not vanish suspiciously. I need it to be lost convincingly, perhaps mixed into the hospital trash. That's your area of expertise, isn't it? Waste disposal. No one will question you. There it was. The test of character. The veiled wager. Victor wasn't just buying her discretion. He was trying to buy her morality, force her to get her hands dirty so she would feel like him, in the mire of corruption. And if I say no? Anya asked, raising her chin. The dizziness gone, replaced by a cold, righteous anger. Victor's smile vanished. Then you're an idiot. And a disappointment. But don't worry. St. Jude's has strict rules about failing to follow a patient's direct orders, especially VIPs. Your colleague Mike, that slightly slow night nurse. I'll say it was him. I'll say he was negligent with my medication. Something serious. He'll lose his job, Anya, and his license. My lawyer will make quick work of it. It was dirty, cruel blackmail. He wasn't just threatening her. He was threatening a colleague, a humble man with a family to support, using him as a moral hostage. The irony was sharp. He was willing to destroy a man's life for a piece of paper. His power was a disease that contaminated everyone around him. Anya stood up. The sight of the money stacks was now repulsive. She took a step forward, leaning slightly over Victor's bed, breaking the distance she always maintained. Her gaze, which had previously avoided his, was now direct, intense. I understand, Mr. Sterling. You think everyone has a price, she said, her voice almost a whisper, but carrying more strength than he had ever heard. You are right. Most people do. But my price is not $20,000. My price is my peace of mind. And Mr. Mike's peace of mind. She picked up the leather briefcase and closed it. The click a gunshot in the room. Your thank you is not necessary. And I am a nursing assistant, Mr. Sterling, not a garbage collector. My job is to save lives, not destroy reputations. Especially my own. Victor was stunned. His jaw tightened. You are shooting yourself in the foot, girl. You will regret this. I promise. Anya placed the briefcase back on the side table, untouched. She turned to Ms. Davies, who looked horrified and secretly impressed. Ms. Davies, Mr. Sterling needs his pillow adjusted, and Mr. Mike will be here in 10 minutes. You, Mr. Sterling, need to relax. Your blood pressure is a little high. Victor's air of superiority had vanished, replaced by silent fury. He had tried to bribe and threaten, and the most invisible person in his environment had defied him. She had lit a fire. He had crossed the line, and in his mind, he had won simply by making the offer. But Anya knew the truth. He had grossly underestimated her. He had forced her to look for the truth behind the number cleaning and the Phoenix patch. Now, she could no longer just be the shadow. The seed of the Revira Volta turnaround had been planted. The weight of Victor Sterling's gaze followed her out of room 701, an invisible burden she would carry for the rest of her shift. Anya's refusal had brought not relief, but a cold fear and a conviction that her life and Mike S. were now in the sights of a vengeful billionaire. He had promised regret, and Victor was a man who followed through on his threats with the precision of an algorithm. But deep down, the refusal had planted something deeper, a sense of silent power. She had kept her backbone, even when the rug was about to be pulled out from under her feet. Anya, however, could not simply return to her routine, as if nothing had happened. Victor had revealed too much. The cash offer and the blackmail concerning Mike were only the symptom. The internal audit report and the need to clean the numbers were the real disease. She knew she had to protect herself, and more importantly, protect Mike from the wrath of a CEO. It was at this moment that her hidden ability manifested. It wasn't a superpower, but a capacity developed over years of living on the margins. The art of forensic observation. As someone who had to anticipate the needs of complex patients and navigate an unjust social system, Anya had learned to notice everything. She didn't just clean the room, she read the room. She didn't just monitor vital signs, she monitored stress patterns. While discreetly tidying up Victor's temporary workstation, a metal table, cluttered with equipment, she remembered the glitch and the Phoenix patch he had mentioned in the call. Victor had typed something on his high-security laptop before dozing off. The laptop was now in sleep mode, but not fully shut down. Her eyes, as she collected an empty cup, skimmed the keyboard. Anya noticed something most would ignore: the fine dust in the corners of the keys and the unusual wear pattern. The 7 key and the 3 key were slightly more worn than the others. What had he said? Use the silent root on code 733. The symbolism of the number resonated in her mind. 733. The number was the key. She looked at the medical monitor. Victor was now deeply asleep, under the influence of a mild sedative. His heart beat at a steady rhythm. But the traces on the monitor still held secrets, like lines of code in a graph. Anya remembered her night college, where she was studying health systems administration, an area that involved data analysis and information security, something Victor assumed was entirely beyond her comprehension. In a quick and risky maneuver, surgical gloves still on her hands, she used the tip of her thumb to press the 7, 3, 3, and enter keys on the sleeping laptop. She expected a login screen, but the laptop, configured for quick access in case of emergency, flashed open a folder on the desktop. The folder name, PHX_data_audit. It was a digital vault standing wide open. And what was inside chilled Anya's blood. These were data logs and internal communications detailing how the Phoenix patch, a bug fix software, was unto a fix at all, but a disguise. It was being used to siphon hundreds of millions of dollars from the savings accounts of smaller investors and low-risk pension funds, masking the transactions as routine fluctuations within a complex system of algorithms. The scheme was a masterpiece of financial malice, and the internal audit report Victor wanted her to destroy was the undeniable proof that he was the architect. Victor Sterling wasn't just an arrogant man. He was a high-level thief, a shark who was swallowing the livelihoods of humble families. The social justice that silently pulsed within Anya ignited. The money he offered her to keep quiet was the crumbs taken from the tables of countless others. She had no time to hesitate. She knew the folder would be encrypted or removed as soon as he woke up, using her own cell phone, which she kept in a special compartment of her supply cart for emergencies. She began documenting what she saw. She couldn't download the files, it was too risky and slow, so she opted for a hidden eye approach. She took high-resolution photos of the headers of the key documents and the communication logs confirming the scheme. In an act of pure irony, she used the light from Victor's heart monitor, which was stable in its physical lie, to illuminate his laptop screen, which revealed his moral decay. The silent click of her cell phone was the sound of truth being captured. She photographed 2 specific documents: a memo signed by Victor detailing the activation of the silent route, and a data table showing the target accounts, many of them small-town pension funds. The job took less than 2 minutes. It was quick, surgical, and she did it with the same calm with which she had cleaned the cranberry juice. She closed the folder, and the laptop returned to sleep mode, leaving no trace. She hadn't touched anything, only observed and documented. She was the nursing assistant, the person he thought couldn't connect to dots. The metaphor of the shadow was broken. The shadow now carried the most powerful weapon: documented truth. Adrenaline ran cold in her veins. She had the proof. She had the secret. Victor's character test had failed spectacularly, but he had, inadvertently, given her the means to take him down. His empire wasn't just vulnerable, it was exposed, and Anya, the invisible one, was holding the smoking gun. Her refusal of the money was the spark. The discovery of code 733 was the dynamite. But what to do now? She had a nucleus secret. And she had 24 hours before Victor fully recovered and could activate the final Phoenix patch to cover everything up. The window of opportunity was narrow and lethal. She walked back into the hallway, her quietness now charged with dangerous purpose. She needed a contact, someone who was immune to Victor's money and had the right megaphone. The face of a woman came to mind: Ms. Alana Vance, a renowned investigative journalist who had been at St. Jude's last week visiting her aunt. Anya had heard Ms. Vance quietly complain about corruption in healthcare and had a business card tucked away in her pocket. The subtle foreshadowing of a casual encounter was now the lifeline for justice. The countdown had begun. The digital clock in the hallway read 2 p.m. The afternoon sun streamed through the glass windows of St. Jude's, turning the polished marble into a river of deceptive light. Anya felt like a full-time spy. Every step, every breath, a calculated risk. The photos on her cell phone were a lottery ticket that, if played wrong, would explode in her hands. The 24 hours promised in the story's title were not a figure of speech. They were the actual deadline before Victor Sterling fully awoke, reviewed his devices, and triggered the final phase of his cleanup. She needed to get out of the hospital. Victor's security had been ramped up after the morning incident. The atmosphere was tense, almost electrified. Any unusual movement would be noticed. Using her years of knowledge about hospital routines and blind spots, Anya orchestrated her escape with the precision of a timekeeper. She knew the shift change at 3 p.m. would create a small window of chaos. She used the supply route, a rarely used service stairwell that exited near the garbage docker. Poetic irony. Since she was carrying the moral garbage of the man who tried to make her dispose of the physical garbage. Alana Vance's business card, the journalist, burned in her pocket. Alana was known for taking down giants. She wasn't buyable. That was her reputation. Anya found a busy coffee shop 2 blocks from the hospital, a place noisy enough to drown out a confession. She called the number, her voice husky with nerves. Ms. Vance. My name is Anya. I'm a nursing assistant at St. Jude's. I have proof that Victor Sterling is stealing millions from pension funds. The journalist, predictably, reacted with professional skepticism, but the mention of the Phoenix patch in Code 733 made her sit up. Anya used the language she overheard, the language that sounded authentic to Victor's world, something a simple nurse shouldn't know. The meeting was at 3:30 p.m. Anya wasted no time with pleasantries. She presented the cell phone photos, the irrefutable proof of Victor's bad faith. He offered me $20,000 to destroy the internal audit report, she whispered. The hyperbole of Victor's financial power sounding ridiculous now. He threatened to ruin a colleague's life. This isn't a mistake, it's a plan. The transactions are scheduled to finalize before the market opens tomorrow. You have less than 24 hours. Alana Vance looked at the images, and her skepticism gave way to a cold fury. The pension funds Victor was draining belonged to retired miners and civil servants, exactly the kind of folks who scratch and claw to get by. The story was a wellspring of social justice. From that moment, Alana Vance became the catalyst. She summoned her legal team and news editor. Anya's evidence was strong, but it was only digital. They needed a warrant, and they needed it now. Time flew by at a frantic pace. Anya couldn't stay with Alana. It would put her directly in Victor's crosshairs, so she returned for her night shift. She transformed back into the shadow, the most perfect alteration of identity. Back in room 701, the tension was palpable. Victor was awake, and his mood was venomous. He ignored Anya, speaking intensely on the phone. He was trying to get ahead of the curve, calling his lawyers and accountants, ensuring the number cleaning was executed. Tomorrow, before the opening, I want the Phoenix patch to run the final sweep. No traces. And Davies, he shouted, I want you to find out who that nurse Mike's lawyer is. We're suing him for negligence. Say he gave me the wrong medication. Anya listened. His panic was a wonderful sound. He was confirming the timeline. The personification of fear began to gnaw at his self-confidence. While he spoke, Alana Vance's team was working frantically. They used Anya's description of the algorithmic scheme and the dates in the images to secure an emergency injunction. The judge, seeing the evidence of pension fund diversion, acted swiftly. At 11 p.m., under the cloak of night, justice arrived at St. Jude's. Not in a dramatic flash of light, but in the silence of dark suits. Federal agents, accompanied by digital forensic specialists and Alana Vance's lawyer, appeared on the platinum wing. Victor was on a critical video call. He laughed, thinking the visitors were from his own security team. That's when he saw the badge and the warrant. The scene in room 701 was one of pure, controlled chaos. The agents took over, and Victor's laptop, which he was desperately trying to shut down, was confiscated. He screamed, threatened, and used every profanity he knew. Anya was at the door, preparing another patient's medication. She didn't need to see everything, but the sounds Victor's booming cry, the cold orders of the agents were enough. She saw Victor being escorted out, not handcuffed, but supported by his lawyer, looking 10 years older. His haughtiness had turned to ash. The imminent collapse wasn't an explosion. It was a silent implosion of an empire built on lies. Victor's threat to Mike had disintegrated. Instead of Victor suing Mike, Victor was being sued. The turnaround was complete. The man who felt like a god was now being led away by pawns. Anya returned to her work, her heart beating a slow, satisfied rhythm. The city outside was still the same, but something had changed. She was no longer the shadow. She was the catalyst. But her work wasn't finished. The story needed an epilogue. The world needed to know why the fall happened. The day dawned with an unusual silence in the Platinum Wing. Room 701 was empty, sterilized, almost unrecognizable, without the oppressive presence of Victor Sterling. The space that once teemed with power and arrogance was now just an expensive room, awaiting the next sick billionaire. But the silence was deceptive. In the world outside, the name Chronos Systems was being shredded in the headlines. The Phoenix Patch becoming the dark joke of financial fraud. Anya was in the service pantry, preparing trays, when the television in the waiting room began broadcasting a breaking news report. Alana Vance, the journalist, was on air, her demeanor serious but victorious. The story detailed the fraud, the theft from pension funds, the silent rout, and the seizure of evidence the night before. Alana praised the courage of an anonymous, selfless source, a person who, motivated by social justice, risked everything to expose the scheme. The source was the symbolism of humble truth, triumphing over grand lies. Anya watched herself in the stainless steel reflection. She was there, invisible to the television world, yet aware of the earthquake she had started. There was no glory for her, just a deep and well-deserved sense of peace of mind. The story, however, doesn't end with the report. That same morning, Victor Sterling was formally indicted. He was in a hospital unit under custody, no longer in luxury, but in a simple room, without the Platinum Wing to mask his misery. Ms. Davies, his loyal and likely complicit assistant, secured brief access to collect some belongings. It was during this brief, humiliating process that Victor had his moment of late recognition. He was sitting in a plastic chair, the weight of the world collapsing on his shoulders. The money, the power it, had all evaporated in 24 hours, exactly as the headlines had promised. His empire collapsed with the fragility of a house of cards. Ms. Vance mentioned the anonymous source. Davies mumbled "Reed-eyed," flipping through a notepad. Who could know about code 733? Victor frowned, his mind reliving every interaction, every face. He thought of the bankers, the treacherous executives, the IT consultants. He thought of everyone who was important. And then, the image of Anya, the silent girl, returned. He saw her refusing the cash, the untouched briefcase, the steady gaze. He saw her cleaning the cranberry juice, her movements efficient and quiet. He saw her near the laptop. The metaphor of his mistake hit him with the force of a punch. He had crossed the line with the most unprotected person, the one he considered least important. He didn't see her as a threat. He saw her as an extension of the furniture. His arrogance, his certainty that money could buy silence, had been his Achilles heel. I underestimated quietness. I underestimated dignity, he thought. The hatred he felt was no longer for the loss of the empire, but for the humiliation of being taken down by the pawn he tried to use as a tool. The irony of his downfall was complete. He was destroyed by the very person he blackmailed, and the very person he thought would protect his secret. Anya, oblivious to the final collapse of her aggressor, was in her last moment of reflection. She had finished her shift. She said goodbye to Mike, who was relieved and grateful. Though not fully understanding the extent of the crisis she had averted, she didn't tell him the details. She didn't need to. Justice was its own silence and its own reward. As she left St. Jude's, the light blue uniform felt lighter. The morning sun was warmer. She wasn't a millionaire. She still had college tuition and her grandmother's bills to pay. But she had something Victor Sterling would never have again, the certainty of having done the right thing. Anya's story wasn't about grand heroism, but about the unbreakable strength of dignity. Victor had seen her quietness as weakness, her humility as subservience. He had tried to buy her. He had tried to destroy her. Instead, he had lit the fire that consumed him. She took the bus home, her cell phone put away, the photos deleted. Her job was done. She was the nursing assistant. She was on the right path, and the city outside continued its pace, unaware that a silent shadow had just toppled one of its gods. Story conclusion. What Victor Sterling failed to understand is that, for some people, wealth is just money, but character is the true currency no one can buy. He crossed the line, and 24 hours later, the quietness of a young woman returned the favor. showing him that the greatest empires don't fall from external attacks, but from the rot that corrodes them from within. The echo of her silence was, finally, the sound of justice.